It reaches back further in time than history. It's a very unbiased record. It records perfectly. Dendrochronology is the study of time and the environment through tree rings. You can study the tree's age, when the tree died, but in our records, we often find that fire historically was very frequent. And so for the Mark Twain National Forest project, we're reconstructing historical fire regimes. One of the first steps of a dendrochronology research project is to identify old wood to reach back far enough in time to answer the study questions that we're pursuing. In southern Missouri, we have the benefit of having fire-dependent tree species. What that means is that a tree needs repeated fire to sustain into the future. Right now we have a lot of undergraduates who we had the opportunity to involve in the field collection as well.
We were a very close-knit group of people, so it was really exciting when we found out about the field collection because we were like, oh, so we get to hang out in the woods. It was a really cold, foggy morning and you're like, all right, something cool is gonna happen.
It often includes bar hikes and chainsaws. That idea that fire is a very positive factor, it's very much been lost. Beneficial effects of fire are preservation of communities, increased biodiversity, ecosystem resilience. And our tree ring records show that in any of these ecosystems that were historically fire dependent, we always see evidence of frequent, low severity fire.
We've actually tracked the movement of indigenous groups throughout history based off of fire patterns because they used prescribed burning way before we ever did.
Prior to the application of dendrochronology, there was a lot of room in terms of the exact years of occupation and abandonment. But by studying the tree rings from these ancient dwellings, we were able to determine the exact years. So for a sample to meet our needs, it must have plenty of rings, and it also has to have fire scars when we're lucky enough to find it.
In the woods, Joe would book it. He won't stop for anything. I find it hilarious because he's so determined to get the work done.
I get lost so easy, it's ridiculous. So I'm going to show you how to mark.
He's a really good teacher because he's so passionate about dendrochronology. I think he realizes that this is such a niche topic and that no one really understands it unless you are a dendrochronologist.
It's called the Rubidoo.
The Rubidoo?
So then he's totally willing to break it down to you.
It's a sandstone formation.
Joe rocks. I love Joe.
I've been lucky enough to be working in dendrochronology for 19 years now. I've never seen a future other than working in natural resources, even from, really young years. And I think that was probably related to a large amount of time I spent outside as a kid, engaging in nature. The wood has a fascinating amount of information. We're often surprised. Usually we find a good sample, bring it back to the lab, and it's much cooler than we thought.
The very first thing we have to do is sand it down because it's got all the chainsaw marks. Make it really smooth and shiny so that we can put it under a microscope and then measure each ring width so that you get the sense of the growth pattern to date the tree. Once we have that, we can analyze the piece for any scars or injuries and determine when a fire happened. It's sort of like solving a puzzle.
These trees that we study often live 300 or more years. It's kind of like talking to someone who died and getting all of their secrets.
Innermost rings here are in the mid-1500s.
Almost all of the fires historically were lit by humans. And that's because most lightning ignited fire is accompanied by rain and is quite rare.
So if there is a catastrophic fire that shows up on every tree in our sample, that's probably from a wildfire that no one was taking any measures to prevent.
Smokey the bear, he can find the fire before it starts to flame. That's why they call him Smokey.
That was how he got his name.
Smokey the bear.
Let's all fight forest fires the right way, before they start.
Smokey the Bear led to a period of fire suppression that actually screwed everything up, because when you don't do prescribed burning and you let fuels build up on the forest floor, that has the chance to be a catastrophic wildfire. The wildfires that happen in California or the bushfires that happen in Australia, people die in the wildfires.
I find a great sense of urgency. The natural communities, those are departing every day. And the wood that exists today is disappearing. And if we don't collect it now, those records in the form of tree rings are going to be lost forever. A big lesson I've learned doing this type of research with trees and time is that human time scale really limits us in our ability to naturally understand the history of a place. I think we get so caught up that we think that what a place is now is how it always has been, and that's very much not the case. The ecosystems we find ourselves in now are so different than they were historically. If we look around this forest right here, there's a lot of space taken up by wood of various trees. It's a little hard to imagine that a dense forest isn't necessarily the optimal condition for that forest. However, with repeated fire, there would be more vegetation where humans can access it, and also where animals that humans might benefit from can access it. I'm very hopeful for these natural systems based on the students that are going through programs like ours. They will be taking these lessons and will be able to implement those into the future to the benefit of those ecosystems and our society.
The peace that you find out there is what made me fall in love with the forests. It allows you to go back into your thoughts and just have a moment to yourself. When you're in the city, you kind of forget to just sit and think. But by being outside, you finally understand.
There's great reason to be hopeful today. Fire use and understanding is increasing very rapidly. There are prescribed fire councils, research is increasing, and the amount of restoration is increasing. Humans are absolutely fire dependent. I challenge you to go a day without the use of fire.